Christopher Reeve, an actor best known for his role as Superman, suffered a serious spinal injury that left him in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. The 1995 incident left millions heartbroken. Now, 29 years later, his son has revealed a shocking secret about what happened that day. What did he reveal? Is there anything missing from the previously published story? Read on to discover the truth behind the event that changed Christopher Reeve's life forever. Do you like Christopher Reeve's portrayal of Superman? Comment 1 below. And before we delve into the revelations, we need to revisit Christopher Reeve's passion for acting to see how deeply the accident affected him. Christopher Reeve's passion for acting. Christopher Reeve, best known for his iconic role as Superman, had a passion for acting from a very young age. Born into a family with a strong artistic background, Reeve began to show his love for the stage and screen from a young age. He has shared that acting is not just a job, but a means to explore the depths of human emotion and creativity. After graduating from Cornell University, Reeve attended the Juilliard School of Drama, where he met and became close friends with actor Robin Williams. His dedication and desire to improve his acting skills made Reeve a versatile actor, with the ability to perform in a variety of genres, from action films to Broadway plays. Although Reeve is best known for his role as Superman, he constantly sought opportunities to express himself through more challenging roles. Films like Somewhere in Time and The Remains of the Day showed the depth of Reeve's talent, as he moved easily from strong-willed heroes to emotionally complex roles. Reeve's passion extended beyond his career, as he was also a strong advocate for the arts of theatre and film. After a serious accident in 1995 that left him paralyzed, Reeve never lost his love for acting. He continued to work as a director and producer, even returning to the screen in inspirational roles, including Rear Window, a television production in which he starred after his accident. Christopher Reeve is not only famous for his acting career, but also known for the special relationships in his life, from family to friends and colleagues. Let's take a look at some of the important relationships in Christopher Reeve's life. Important events in Christopher Reeve's life. Reeve had a close relationship with his parents despite their divorce when he was young. His mother, a journalist, inherited his artistic flair and passion. His father, a literature professor, encouraged Reeve to develop his intellect and broaden his horizons. Despite living in a divided household, he always felt loved and supported by both sides. Reeve and his first wife, Guy Exton, had a meaningful relationship, and together they formed an important part of his life. Although they were never formally married, they lived together for a long time and had 2 children, Matthew and Alexandra. Their relationship began in the late 1970s, when Reeve was already famous for his role as Superman, and Exton was a prominent model agent. After many years of marriage, Reeve and Exton decided to separate in 1987. However, they maintained a good relationship, especially sharing the responsibility of raising their 2 children. Reeve's love for Dana Morosini, his second wife, was one of the most memorable relationships of his life. They met when Reeve was already a famous star, but Dana was not attracted to his aura, but by his genuine personality and strong love of life. After a horseback riding accident in 1995 left Reeve paralyzed, Dana remained by his side, not only as a caregiver, but also as a great spiritual support. In addition, Reeve had a deep friendship with Robin Williams. The two met while students at Juilliard and quickly became close friends for life. Their friendship endured, and during the most difficult times after the accident, Williams visited Reeve regularly, bringing him joy and humor that never faded. Reeve also had a good relationship with his children, especially his eldest son Matthew and daughter Alexandra, from his first marriage to Guy Exton. Despite his busy work schedule, Reeve always tried to maintain a close relationship with his children, and after the accident, they became a great source of encouragement for him. Unfortunately, Christopher Reeve's life was not always perfect. After achieving both career and marriage, Christopher Reeve took a tragic turn in 1995. Where did that tragedy come from? Let's continue to follow. Tragic turn in 1995. Christopher Reeve's passion for equestrian riding was spurred by the film Anna Karenina, which was released in 1985. Even though he first developed an allergy to horses and required antihistamines anytime he was in the presence of horses, he finally went through the process of getting over his response. This new hobby, which brought him a great deal of happiness, would inevitably become the focal point of his existence. At the beginning of the year 1989, he began participating in the sport of eventing, which is a combination of dressage, cross-country, and show jumping. As a direct consequence of this action, a sad occurrence that altered the path that one's life would take took place in the year 1995. While Reeve was off on his equestrian journey, he was confronted by a lot of warnings. His past injuries include a fractured leg that he sustained while skiing when he was a child, and 3 broken ribs that he sustained in 1987 as a result of an accident that occurred while he was horseback riding. During his appearance on The Tonight Show in March, he made light of his misfortunes, entirely oblivious to the reality that they were antecedents to something far more serious. Although Reeve was in the process of filming Village of the Damned in 1994, he purchased Eastern Express, an American thoroughbred who was 12 years old and was known as Buck. Over more than a year, he collaborated with Buck to be ready for the developmental level contests in 1995 and the preliminary level advancements in 1996. In the beginning, Reeve had planned on holding a tournament in Vermont of some kind. Despite this, his instructor was successful in convincing him to go to the Commonwealth Park Equestrian Center in Culpeper, Virginia, to compete in the finals of the Commonwealth Dressage and Combined Training Association. A total of 27 competitors competed in the dressage event, and Reeve finished in 4th place, indicating that she was successful. As he made his way over the cross-country course, he made mental notes of the challenging jumps, but he paid little attention to the 3rd jump, which was a rather unremarkable U-shaped fence measuring 3 feet and 3 inches. The 27th of May 1995 was the day when Reeve's life took a drastic change. As Reeve got closer to the 3rd leap, his horse Buck paused for a while before bursting into action, which sent him hurtling ahead. It was the reins that entangled his hands, which led to his pulling on the bridle, which ultimately resulted in him biting the horse. Suddenly, Reeve was hurled over the fence with a loud thud. However, although he was wearing a helmet and a safety jacket, the impact caused him to fracture both his 1st and 2nd cervical vertebrae. He became completely immobile and lost the capacity to breathe in an instant. After receiving his call, paramedics arrived promptly and performed the necessary actions to assist him in regaining his ability to breathe. After Reeve was transported by helicopter from a local hospital, the University of Virginia Medical Center was informed of the situation. After the collision, he was no longer able to recall the accident. 5 days later, after being disoriented and under the influence of a significant amount of drugs, Reeve came to full awareness. During the event, his 1st and 2nd cervical vertebrae were broken, and his spinal cord was severely wounded, as his physician stated. Additionally, his spinal cord was severely damaged. That was a devastating piece of news. The fact that Reeve was paralyzed from the neck down meant that he required the assistance of a ventilator to breathe. Faced with such a tragic event, you can't imagine how desperate he would be. How did Christopher Reeve react after the injury? Let's take a look back. Reeve's reaction after the accident. An overwhelming sense of hopelessness was Reeve's first emotion upon receiving this news. He thought his days were numbered and that he would eventually be a financial drain on his loved ones. As he said to his wife Dana, "Maybe we should just let me go," he was overwhelmed. A caring and steadfast reaction came from Dana. She sobbed as she told him she would be by him no matter what, but that no matter what, you are still you, and I love you. We may re-evaluate in 2 years if you still desire to die, she continued, trying to console him. After hearing her remarks, Reeve felt compelled to consent to surgery and treatment for pneumonia, with the encouragement of his children and loved ones. He subsequently disregarded the idea of euthanasia. Both physical and mental suffering accompanied Reeve throughout her recuperation. He frequently spent nights in the intensive care unit by himself, thinking about the challenges that lay ahead. In June 1995, he faced a particularly discouraging time as he got ready for spinal stabilization surgery, knowing that his chances of survival were just 50%. A man in a blue scrub cap and medical gown burst into his room at that low moment, speaking with a heavy Russian accent. "A rectal exam is going to be conducted by me, a proctologist," the man stated. Robin Williams was back, playing the role he had played for the past 9 months. Reeve had a glimmer of optimism after laughing for the first time since the accident. My old buddy reassured me that everything would be well. As Reeve later recounted in his autobiography, Still Me, to brace the vertebrae in Reeve's neck, surgeon Dr. John A. Jane utilized wires and bone grafts taken from his hip. A titanium pin was utilized to stabilize his spinal column, and the vertebrae were connected to the skull for further security. Even though the operation went well, Reeve still had a long road to recovery ahead of him. How did he deal with those hardships? It's hard to fathom, but let's see how those hardships affected Christopher Reeve and how he overcame them. Reeve's reaction after the accident. He remained in the Kessler Rehabilitation Center in West Orange, New Jersey, for 5 months following a month in the hospital. He mastered the use of a sip-and-puff motorized wheelchair, which enabled him to propel himself by inhaling air via a straw at that facility. The truth of his new existence was difficult for Reeve to comprehend. Even the most basic activities, like sitting in a wheelchair or taking a shower, were first horrifying to him. However, he became quite attached to the Kessler staff and made friends with other patients as time went on. He accepted the challenge of adapting to a new way of life and began to identify with the handicapped population as a result of these relationships. A ventilator, attached via a tracheostomy tube, was Christopher Reeve's sole means of respiration in the months immediately following his accident. After enduring extensive treatment, he eventually learned to breathe on his own for up to 90 minutes. Determination drove Reeve to exercise 4 or 5 hours a day, utilizing devices that stimulated his muscles to avoid osteoporosis and atrophy. He had faith that, with time and rigorous physical treatment, his neurological system could be repaired. Reeve was successful in his endeavors. His ability to feel temperature on 65% of his body returned by 2002, and by 2000 he was able to move his fingers to a lesser extent. He had a routine that was so strict that his physicians couldn't believe he was getting well. After a year away, Reeve finally made it back to Point Ridge, New York, in December 1995. He said he was grateful to be living 2 years after the disaster, not because he felt he had to, but because he finally found purpose in life. Even though he would need a staff of 10 nurses and aides to take care of him 24/7 for the rest of his life, he was hell-bent on making the most of his newfound situation. Although Reeve was first distraught by the accident, his determination became stronger as time went on. Activism, filmmaking, writing, public speaking, and fatherhood were his life's work. Who knows why an accident happens? Reeve pondered in an interview that year, 1998. What comes next is crucial. Shock, followed by grief, bewilderment, and loss, is the normal progression of events. Then 2 options will be presented to you. One option is to do nothing and slowly crumble into oblivion. The other is to rally and make the most of your resources, whatever they may be. I have traveled that path. No amount of well-intentioned encouragement to pray helped Reeve find peace. I wondered what was wrong with me, he wrote at one point. Even after breaking my neck and becoming disabled for the rest of my life, I hadn't discovered God. Despite his physical restrictions, he stayed focused on having a meaningful life. Remarkably, Reeve's acting career continued after the accident. Did you know that? How will he overcome this obstacle? What will his acting career be like after that? Let's see. Reeve's acting career after the accident. The fact that he played a paraplegic police officer in the HBO film Above Suspicion right before he hurt himself seems almost portentous. He immersed himself in a rehabilitation center to study paralysis and its effects as part of his preparation for the role. Similar to his character, he met his demise only 1 week after the film's debut. Due to his injuries, Reeve was unable to accept prominent roles in films like Kidnapped and Tell Me True. But it wasn't the end of his career. Just 1 year after he became paralyzed, Reeve received an Emmy for Outstanding Informational Special in 1996 for his narration in the television documentary Without Pity, which aired on HBO. The 1997 HBO film In the Gloaming was Reeve's directing debut. The picture boasted an A-list ensemble that included Robert Sean Leonard, Glenn Close, Whoopi Goldberg, and Bridget Fonda. In addition to 5 Emmy nominations, including 1 for Outstanding Director of a Miniseries or Special, and 4 Cable Ace Awards, The film was well praised by critics. Incredible tenacity and commitment to his art were on display by Christopher Reeve. Actor Christopher Reeve was also very much involved in the activist movement. Motivated by his interactions with fellow patients, Reeve departed from the Kessler Rehabilitation Center in 1995. The media's incessant coverage of him prompted him to decide to use his celebrity status to raise awareness about spinal cord injuries. Between speaking at the 1996 Democratic National Convention and hosting the Paralympics in Atlanta, he had a busy 1996. To deliver talks, he traversed the nation. On August 26, 1996, he was featured on the cover of Time magazine in recognition of these endeavors. In 1997, Reeve supported a plan to increase the lifetime ceiling on insurance payouts from $1 million to $10 million per person. This was her first attempt to amend disability policy. In many cases, the $1 million limit is only in place for a short period for critically wounded individuals who only have one insurance coverage. The law was defeated by a hair's breadth, but Reeves wasn't. He was an outspoken supporter of the Work Incentives Improvement Act of 1999, which, among other things, ensures that disabled individuals can keep receiving their benefits even after they return to the workforce. At the national level, Reeve was chosen vice chairman of the National Organization on Disability and chairman of the American Paralysis Association. He has also served on the boards of other organizations that aim to enhance the lives of those with disabilities. He and Joan Irvine Smith were co-founders of the world-renowned Reeve Irvine Research Center, which specializes in spinal cord research. To better assist individuals with disabilities and to expedite research, Reeve merged two of his foundations in 1999 to become the Christopher Reeve Foundation. The former was the American Paralysis Association, while the latter was another of his foundations. So far, the foundation has distributed over $8.5 million in grants to improve people's quality of life and over $65 million to fund research. To talk about Will Reeves, Christopher Reeve's son, a poor boy. What did that little boy have to go through? Let's watch The Pain of Will Reeves. Through his advocacy for research into neurological ailments, especially spinal cord injuries, Christopher Reeve has reportedly done more than anybody else in the years following his disability, as stated by the University of California, Irvine. Will Reeves is still unable to comprehend the seriousness of the situation that occurred with his father, despite all that is taking place. His half-brother Matthew and his sister Alexandra, on the other hand, have a significant understanding of the issue. When Will was a child, he found out that his father had a handicap. Nonetheless, he continued to love and accept his father, regardless of the condition. Reeve can recall both of his parents when he was a child. He and his father shared the same enthusiasm for athletics. His father frequently saw him participating in a variety of sports, including hockey. Christopher passed suddenly from heart failure in 2004, 8 years after enjoying an amazing life despite being confined to a wheelchair. He was 52 years old at the time of his death. Despite appearing on screen with the powerful image of Superman, few people know how many strange diseases Christopher Reeve had to face. Let's find out about Christopher Reeve behind the scenes. Reeves overcame an allergy to horses, in case you forgot. Problems like that have plagued him since he was a little boy. Reeve was diagnosed with alopecia areata, a disorder that causes patches of hair to fall out when she was 16 years old. He managed the problem for a large portion of his life by just combing over the spots. On occasion, it would even go into remission. But by the time he was a star in Superman's third and fourth films, the problem had progressed to the point that Reeve had to start wearing a wig to hide his thinning hair. Shaving his head became an option for him after his disability worsened his baldness. Medication allergies plagued Reeve throughout his life. He tested a new medication at the Kessler Institute for Rehabilitation in the hopes that it might lessen the severity of his spinal cord injury. His heart stopped beating because the medicine caused a potentially deadly anaphylactic shock. Reeve had a remarkable out-of-body experience in his book, in which he witnessed himself lifeless on the bed while doctors and nurses raced to save him. As though someone was progressively lowering the volume, he noted that the din and bustle gradually subsided. Reeve was stabilized and revived later that night after receiving an epinephrine injection at the right moment. Sepsis was a potentially fatal consequence of an infected pressure ulcer that Reeve was receiving treatment for in early October 2004. He had previously battled this life-threatening infection several times. He delivered a moving speech at the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago on October 4th, his last public appearance, in which he advocated for the advancement of spinal cord injury research and treatment. Reeve went to see his son Will play hockey a few days later, on October 9th. Following the administration of antibiotics to treat the illness, Reeve suffered a heart collapse that evening. After he went into a coma, medical personnel in Mount Kisco, New York, sent him to the Northern Westchester Hospital. Reeve died 18 hours later, on October 10, 2004, despite the best efforts of the medical staff. Christopher Reeve's death was a huge psychological blow to Will, but that wasn't the only thing that hurt him. What could have made Will more devastated when he was only 3 years old? Let's continue reading to see how much sympathy we have for Will. The loss of Will. No autopsy was conducted, but Reeve's doctor, John MacDonald, and his wife, Dana, both suspected that a severe response to the antibiotic was a major factor in his demise. He had an incredible life, full of successes, unfathomable hardships, and an unwavering commitment to helping people with disabilities. His demise was the end of that wonderful existence. While Will and his family were still grieving the loss of his father, the unimaginable occurred when he was 11 years old. Dana Reeve, who had been an incredible mother to Will and a wonderful caregiver to her husband, was diagnosed with lung cancer despite never having smoked. Dana had hoped to resume singing soon, but her coughing fits prevented her from practicing. It was stage 4 lung cancer, and unfortunately, she did not survive it. Dana passed away in March 2006, only 17 months after her husband passed away, leaving Will, who was 13 years old at the time, an orphan. Will couldn't say anything at the time, but he was fuming on the inside. It wasn't until he was 32 that he revealed his feelings at that time. How did Will feel? Can you imagine? No more guessing, see what Will shared right below. Will's feelings. He recalled the moment when he realized he was alone. Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, is an enlightening new documentary that the 3 children of the film legend, Matthew, 44, Alexandra, 40, and Will, 32, have collaborated on to exhibit the life their dad led on screen. Christopher Reeve's life and work as Superman, a role he played famously in the 1970s and 1980s, are chronicled in the documentary. Reeve had an impactful and resilient life, starting as a promising actor at Juilliard and continuing through his revolutionary work as a filmmaker and activist. Despite his heroic appearance, his children were most affected by his resilience in the face of adversity, following his 1995 fall from a horse, which crippled him from the neck down. When asked about his father's legacy, Will emphasized that heroism goes beyond mere physical prowess and public glamour. It's about being honest, being there for your loved ones, keeping going even when things are tough, and enjoying life to the fullest. Our dad was that guy. I told him that I loved him, Will said in footage that aired on Tuesday's Good Morning America, describing the moment they all had to say goodbye. If it meant making Dad proud, I would do it without hesitation. Discussing their painful farewell, Alexandra revealed that Dana swooped in and shouted out, I love you, repeatedly as if she were going to reach him. Despite the love and stability that my brothers, my relatives, and my adoptive family gave me, that was the moment that Will revealed in the documentary, speaking openly about the devastating loss he endured as a young adolescent when his mother passed away. March 6, 2006. Ever since that day, I've been completely by myself. He went on to relate what transpired when I moved in with our dearest friends and cherished neighbors. I can't believe it's been nearly 20 years since that incredible, unbelievable thing happened. Will continued by saying that his maternal grandparents, Charles and Helen Marini, were crucial, but that everyone pitched in to assist him out. He blessed us by saying that our community was close-knit. Everyone from our past and present, as well as our many friends, instructors, and coaches, was always there to provide a hand. Will admits that rage flares up from time to time, but he is generally appreciative of the community's support. He remarks with a brilliant smile that brings to mind his father that in the brief time he had with his parents, They brought me up in a normal, human, grounded way, which generally gives me a rational perspective of everything life throws at you. He had a strong bond with his mother when he was a child. When she wasn't gushing over her spouse, she would often take Will to many sports and playdates. Think about his emotions when she disappeared. According to Will Reeve, there are moments when I manage things effectively and other times when there's a cause for four-letter words. Since their father passed away, Will and his siblings have made it a point to honor his life and work as one of Hollywood's most adored actors. Telling his fellow GMA presenter, Robin Roberts, "There's a universal story in here." Will expressed his satisfaction with the endeavor. A well-known individual is not the subject. A family is the subject, an emotional tale. Superhuman feats were performed by our human parents. The new video provides an unusual look into his private life, including his troubled connection with his father, a professor, and his breakup with Gay Exton, with whom he had 2 children, Matthew and Alexandra. It also shows how Dana persevered through the difficulties following her husband's accident to keep the family running. Will read aloud from his mother's notebook during an earlier visit on Good Morning America. The entry sheds light on her profound anguish about Christopher's 2004 death. "I've been doing some research on what constitutes loneliness and what constitutes isolation." Will reads aloud how his mother found comfort in the warm white towels as they came out of the dryer, and how he holds them close to his chest as a sad substitute for a body. The tale of his life is told to them. He persisted in reading. "To this day, I long for his hands, the expressive elegance and weight of them, the warmth of his palms on my flesh, the embrace of his arms, the merging of our bodies. I delicately lift the stack of towels to the upper floor, taking care not to drop them. Keep one, the one on top that I had placed to my face. It's still wet and requires more time to dry." After reading the entry, Will stated that it was the ordeal she was going through. Nonetheless, Will spoke cleanly about the tremendous amount of love and support he got from those closest to him. "It has been such an extraordinary experience for about 20 years since I moved in with our dear neighbors, who also happen to be our greatest friends," he says. Along with being brothers, his elder half-siblings Matthew and Alexandra had an important role in his childhood as role models and parents. On September 21st, in select cinemas, and again on September 25th, which would have been Reeve's 72nd birthday, the new documentary will be shown. The 3 children of the actors are overjoyed to provide a window into their father's personal life, both before and after the tragedy. According to Will, who was almost 3 years old when his dad was hurt, Dana Reeve was the one who held the family together following the disaster. Christopher Reeve's children talked to their father for the first time after the accident. How do they feel? What will they reveal next? Let's follow. Christopher Reeve's children speak to their father for the first time since the accident. Alexandra, a 40-year-old lawyer, described how her stepmother Dana Reeve informed the children before bringing them in to meet Christopher. "It's going to look scary, but he's still there," Alexandra said, describing the descent. "Get in touch with him. Put everything else aside. Get in touch with him. They can hold hands," she told them, and you're grasping his fingers when it's got machinery on it." She kept going. "We said farewell, and he offered this wave." Matthew Reeve remembers when recalling his father before the disaster. "It was a devastating moment. When he got back on his feet, that was it." Will is now a journalist and activist. He was a child when the accident happened. After finishing his undergraduate degree at Middlebury College and working at Good Morning America, Will worked his way up to ESPN's Sports Center and has been a reporter for ABC News since 2018. "I agree with Will that my mom did everything she could to keep me involved so that I wouldn't grow up permanently afraid of my dad. Because of the gravity of his spinal cord damage, you needed to be physically close to him at all times, touch him frequently, and assist him in lifting his legs so that he could move around." Even though Will Reeve doesn't have any words of comfort for people who have lost loved ones, he does believe that life may become better after a catastrophe. He mentions the 5 stages of grieving, from denial to acceptance, but adds that healing is the 6th step and that anybody may reach it. Although loss never goes away, there is hope for recovery. "I live by that motto. Because of them, I strive to live my life and treat other people with respect. The actor and his late wife Dana Reeve are featured in the documentary trailer that was published on August 26th by DC Studios. An emotional scene occurs in the trailer when Christopher Reeve remembers how the love of Dana Reeve gave him the drive to live again following his injuries. Unfortunately, I messed up everyone's lives. As a result, I will be unable to ski, sail, or even toss Will a ball. Having trouble making out with Dana. Perhaps it would be best if we parted ways, Christopher Reeve thought to himself. The words, "You're still you and I love you," were life-saving when she spoke them. Dana Reeve became an advocate for caregivers throughout the world after receiving accolades for caring for her husband from the moment of his injury until his death. Paralysis runs in her family, she stated in a message to other caregivers that is still available on the website of the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. This came to light after her husband Christopher was hurt. Although it is a gratifying and rewarding job to take care of our family's physical, emotional, social, and economic needs, caring for someone who is paralyzed is not something we always anticipate. Perhaps you are wondering if it is difficult to keep thinking about this traumatic event from your past. Talking about my parents keeps them close to me, which is why Will has the solution for you. It gives me great joy to be their son and a part of this family. It allows me to reacquaint my parents with others who care about them and to share their stories with those who may not know them otherwise. It is truly an honor to be able to remember them and bring them into a world that is in dire need of heroes. How do you feel about Will's honest sharing? Do you feel regretful that a cinema legend has passed away like that? We look forward to receiving your feedback, and don't forget to like and follow the channel to update more useful information.